Back, and we're going to be doing another breakdown and predictions video. This week it's for UFC Vegas 50, Thiago Santos versus Magomed Ankalaev. Actually a pretty sneaky good card, so excited to break this one down. Just before I get started, last week we did hit the goal of over 200 likes, so really appreciate that. That was awesome. Let's try to do that again. Let's try to get 200 likes on this video. And you know, if you want to hit up the Patreon, there's a lot of events going on this week. There's a Bellator, there's Invicta going on tonight. They have a LFA, another PFL card going on. So anyone that's already on the Patreon, really appreciate it. And anyone that wants to jump on this week to get some more content, get some bets for those events, and make some money, I really appreciate that too. But for what everyone wants to listen to here, we're going to get into this fight card here with first fight. It's Tufan Nchukwi. He's going to be taking on Azamat Murzakanov. And Tufan Nchukwi, he's had a few fights in the UFC now. This is going to be Murzakanov's debut. And Nchukwi, he went back up to 205 his last fight and got a win against Mike Rodriguez. The fight before that, if you remember, he made the drop down to 185, fought Jun Young Park and was unsuccessful. But he did beat Jamie Pickett up at 205 as well. He has a win over William Knight. And he's a former kickboxer. He trains with Team Lloyd Irving. So training with Lloyd Irving, he has gotten better with his grappling. And he's shown that off in some of his fights so far in his career. Saturday night, he's going to have no easy task. He is the underdog, and he's going to be taking on an undefeated fighter in Azamat Murzakanov. Murzakanov, he's 10-0. He's coming off a really nice knockout victory on the Contender Series. And he's been struggling to get someone to fight him in the UFC. He's had 3 fights scheduled. They were all towards the end of 2021, but all 3 of those opponents pulled out of the fight. So hopefully he's going to get to go out there and get his debut done with after a long layoff here. Not that long, but he fought on the Contender Series, I believe, in the middle of last year, maybe the summertime. And he's finished 8 of his 10 wins in the first round. 7 were knockouts. So much like his last fight, that's usually what he wants to do. Get in there, get out, get the finish with his hands. And he needs to get going now. He's 35 years old, so definitely is a little bit old coming in here to the UFC for his first fight. And if he wants to make some noise, he has to start picking up some victories right now. He's also only 5'10". He has a 71-inch reach, so for light heavyweight, he is a little bit small in there. But he is going to have to deal with that, and I think he can. He's been able to fight at heavyweight against certain guys, and I think he does a pretty good job of getting inside. He has good speed, but Nchukwi has a 77-inch reach, and he's a beast. He's a big guy. He's very strong, pretty good striker. He is a little bit slow and plotty. He likes to control the center. He'll try to bully guys, pressure them. And it's be interesting how Murzakanov deals with that, because Murzakanov is a fighter who most of the time has been able to back up his opponents, use fakes, use feints, and his speed and the takedown threat to make guys go backwards. With Nchukwi, I think it's imperative to try to hold the center and push Murzakanov back. You can't allow Azamat to get in that groove like he likes to do and start getting his in and out movement going, get you towards the cage and get you guessing. Don't be afraid of the takedown. Murzakanov, he may get a takedown or two, but Nchukwi, he's proven to be hard to hold down. He's explosive. And Murzakanov isn't a fighter with overwhelming top pressure. He isn't going to shoot 100 times in a fight. If he realizes after getting a takedown or two he can't hold you down, he isn't going to make it a big part of his game plan, in my opinion. He may not abandon it entirely, but I think that if Nchukwi can discourage him a little bit by getting back up to his feet, if he does get taken down a couple of times, Murzakanov will start to strike with him much more often. And he's going to start to try to back up Murzakanov. He has to try to do that and see how Murzakanov deals with being on the back foot. In my opinion, early in the fight, he should try to keep everything tight, have good defense, and just try not to get hit with anything crazy. Use effective pressure, maybe try to mix in the body shots, work on the gas tank. Those are 2 things that Nchukwi is really good at. He has a nice high guard. He has good composure. He's a very good body puncher. So I don't think he's going to be overwhelmed by the speed or, any of the outside factors like the hype or anything of Murzakanov. But Nchukwi, he is going to be a lot slower than Murzakanov, and that's why I think that he has to start a little bit slow and then turn it up late as the fight goes on. and he has a chance to land counter shots as Mirzakhanov loads in the pocket. Sometimes he will kind of load up when he's too close in range, and guys could snipe him with straight fast shots or just kind of short tight hooks. And Mirzakhanov really hasn't fought the best competition. I don't necessarily know if Tafon is the best striker that Azamat has ever fought. Azamat has been in there with Guido and Ascench, but Nchukwi is more explosive and he's harder to take down and hold down, I would say, than any opponent that Mirzakhanov has faced to date. And it's an interesting fight for sure because in the stand-up, Nchukwi does a good job. Like I said, he stays calm. He can cut the cage off. He's pretty good at ripping the body. He's comfortable in the pocket. He has good head kicks, and he's very durable as well. So he has a lot of good qualities himself. He isn't really going to look for takedowns, but like I said, he's hard to hold down. He's proven to be pretty strong. I mean, I've seen him be in there with guys like William Knight and be able to muscle around William Knight in the clinch, who's, we all know how strong that guy is. But he did get a little bit tired. Threw a ugly kick in the third round, got taken down off that kick against Jung Young Park and got controlled. He was taken down, I believe, once by Jamie Pickett. So I do think Mirzakhanov is going to take him down, but it's just going to be whether he could do damage on the ground, hold him down, or if Tafon's going to be able to get back up to his feet, maybe reverse get on top, or just make him work for the takedowns. But I will say, in that third round against Jung Young Park, even though it was at 185, maybe you can give him a little bit of leeway for that. He did get tired, and when he got taken down, he was full mounted. He got beat up. He got cut open with some elbows. So he was looking pretty bad towards the end of that round off of his back. So we're going to have to see if Mirzakhanov takes him down, especially if he's getting a little tired, if he's going to be able to survive something like that. But Mirzakhanov, he definitely has a bit of a padded record, if you ask me. 6 of his first 7 opponents were pretty low level. He did beat Andre Muniz. He got a 50-second knockout as well, which is a good win. And then he was able to go to Brave CF, which is a pretty big organization over there in the Middle East. And he beat Guido and Ascench. He beat Mohamed Fakhreddin to win a one-night tournament. It was an open weight tournament, so he beat a guy in Guido that was a former heavyweight that outweighed him by a pretty large margin. And then he beat Fakhreddin as well, who's a pretty high-level fighter. And that's what earned him a spot on the Contender Series. So if you ask me, he really only has about 4 legit opponents in his career. And some of his early fights have not been the greatest. I've seen him slow down a little bit against Alexei Sidorenko, who's not really proven to be a good fighter. And it was only a 2-round fight, but the second round it did seem like Mirzakhanov was getting a little bit tired. And then I also saw Azamat in there with an opponent that when they fought was 0-3, and now he's 0-6 in his career, so he's never gotten a pro victory. And he got dropped and almost knocked out cold by that guy, so that was something that was a little bit alarming to me as well. But he's definitely a good fighter, though. You could see it, and he hasn't been beaten yet. He's well-rounded. He has good fight IQ, and he will take the path of least resistance to win his fights. If he's a better striker, he's going to keep it on the feet, look for the knockout. If he's, the better wrestler, he'll get the takedown and try to finish it on the ground or control you. And he's a southpaw. He has good in-and-out movement. He's very fast. He has really killer power as well. Darts in with the left straight or left overhand, and he has a good 2-3. And he landed a really good switch stance uppercut that flatlined Mohamed Fakhreddin. But I will say it did seem as if Fakhreddin was a bit compromised from the previous fight he had on that card, because obviously they both fought once already that night, and his leg was given out on him. But nonetheless, Mirzakhanov violently took care of business, and he showed that he has knockout power in both hands. His last fight, he dropped his opponent with the right hook, finished him with ground and pound. He doesn't really mix up what he does on the feet a lot. He doesn't really have a big bag in terms of his striking arsenal, but his hand speed, his ability to close the distance combined with his power makes him effective. And with the arsenal he does have, he has been able to knock guys out, get really brutal finishes, and be undefeated. So I haven't really seen Mirzakhanov throw many kicks in his fights. He usually only works the hands. And he can wrestle. He used the overhand to set up his double leg, or try to use the use the the double leg entry to come up to the clinch, push you to the cage. He can be a little bit low volume on the feet, but good at being all the way in or all the way out, being cocked to counter, feinting, and obviously having that ability to level change. So it makes his opponent a little bit slow to the draw as well, and you can kind of lull them into these slow-paced fights. He does a good job getting guys thinking he's going to come in with the big overhand left because of his feints and forward pressure, and then he'll kind of either fake the takedown or get the takedown, and sometimes he'll use that overhand left to back you up into the clinch or into the towards the cage and then throw combinations. He has decent combinations when he can back you up. And he has pretty good control and takedowns. He has good single. The double's good, like I said. He has okay body locks. So he has a good array of takedown attempts that he can go to. Sometimes he doesn't really set his takedowns up well. He could shoot from too far out at times as well. But I've noticed that even when he shoots bad shots, he hasn't been facing the highest level opponents, but he's been able to chain wrestle and then end up coming up into a takedown. But I feel like he will be made to pay for that against higher level opponents in the UFC if he shoots those bad takedowns. And he isn't a guy that's very dangerous. He doesn't have the best top control on the ground. He's very dangerous on the feet, but he doesn't have a submission game. He doesn't have big ground and pound. When he finishes, he usually catches his opponent in the first round. When he's fast, he's fresh, he's powerful. He has that 3-2, the perfect left cross, and just puts his opponent to sleep. And he only has one submission win in his career, 2 decisions. And in his 2 decisions, he only went 2 rounds in both of those fights. So he has never gone 3 rounds in a fight. And I do question his cardio a little bit. He did get tired in that fight against Sidorenko, but that was quite a long time ago. His fight against Guido in Assange, the 2-round fight, it wasn't a very grueling fight. He was able to hit the takedowns and kind of control on top and not really have to work too hard. So if Nchukwi can push the pace, it could be interesting. I feel like Mirzakhanov has a lot to prove, and he could lose against the right opponent. He's 30. He's a little bit older. They have him listed at 32 here on Fight Metric, but on Tapology they have him listed at 35. So I'm not sure exactly what his age is, but he is a little bit older, like I said. And I don't necessarily know if he's going to go up and get the title or anything. He doesn't really have a large array of experience, but I just feel like in this fight he has a big speed advantage. I think that Nchukwi is going to struggle with the counterattacks of Mirzakhanov, and he has a great chin in Nchukwi, but this is the most skillful power striker that Nchukwi has faced to date in his MMA career. And if he gets hit with some big shots early, even if he doesn't get put out, the damage could get him tired or kind of just make him hesitant to close the distance. And I think it's going to be a tough fight because I think Mirzakhanov could hit some takedowns as well and just get Nchukwi thinking a little bit, not wanting to pull the trigger. And I feel like Mirzakhanov could get a little bit further ahead. I do think, though, as the fight goes on, like maybe the 3rd round, we're going to see a couple things come out of Mirzakhanov. We're going to see his gas tank tested. We're going to see his durability tested a little bit because Nchukwi's no slouch. He's not a guy that I think is just going to go out there and get knocked out in the first round. It's possible, but if he doesn't, I think he will eventually start to have some moments, maybe even win that 3rd round. But I think Mirzakhanov is going to have enough of a lead if he gets tired that Nchukwi's not going to be able to come back without a finish, and don't see him getting the finish here. So I think that Mirzakhanov is going to get a decision victory in this fight. And in this next one, we got everyone's favorite punching bag, Chris Moutinho taking on Guido Canetti. No, I'm just joking. I'm not trying to. But yeah, I mean, we got Chris Moutinho. He's making his 2nd UFC appearance. He's gained a lot of fans from his first fight. He showed a good toughness, and it was almost an unwinnable task. I mean, he had to go in there against Sean O'Malley on really short notice. It was at UFC 264 on the main card of pay-per-view, so really high-profile fight. It was against a tough opponent that has a lot of fans, a lot of backing behind him. Now it's his 2nd fight week, and it's definitely more low-key at a training camp for this fight, and he doesn't have to deal with fighting a fan favorite. He's not fighting on the main card of Conor McGregor pay-per-view, and it's just, a little bit easier for him probably. He's going to be at the Apex. There's not going to be a ton of fans there. He's probably not going to have to do too much media. And he isn't on the main card. He's the second fight of the night. So it's a much more appropriate spot, and the level of competition is much more appropriate for Moutinho as well. Against O'Malley, Moutinho absorbed the most strikes in UFC history. He got put away in the third round, and all he really showed in that fight is his tough, durable. He can come forward. He has good cardio. As far as his skill set goes, he got completely muted in that fight, but he's a pressure fighter, and he's very durable. Like I said, he comes forward, eats shots, tries to get guys tired, and then finish them late. He has okay striking on the inside. He'll go body head. He will try to mix in some knees. He has a decent clinch game. His kicks on the outside are okay. I think in this fight, he's just going to try to kind of Homer Simpson Guido a little bit, and then start to close the gap, get on the inside, and put combos together. I feel like Moutinho eventually is going to get put to sleep really bad, and probably will soon, maybe even this fight. He's been dropped in multiple fights. He has been TKO'd before. I've seen him get finished against Johnny Campbell as well, not just Sean O'Malley. And Canetti, I feel like, is live for a first round knockout in this fight. But Moutinho's game plan is pretty simple. He's going to be trying to get inside and drown Canetti. And Chris Moutinho, he's not really a great wrestler. He doesn't really wrestle offensively. I've seen him use the clinch effectively, and I've seen him get guys tired and then drag him to the ground. And his jiu-jitsu is pretty good. I mean, he will attack submissions off his back. When you take him down, he isn't going to let you rest. He will try to butterfly sweep you. He'll be looking for submissions. He'll be looking to get back up to his feet. So he always is going to be trying to get the finish or trying to make his opponent work to keep him in a bad position on the ground. I've seen him use leg locks and get sweeps that way. So he has a pretty well-rounded submission game. When he gets on top, I've seen him be able to pass pretty good, and he does a good job of getting in dominant positions, controlling, and eventually getting the finish. And really, I mean, his main attributes are his heart, his cardio, and his durability, and he's going to need to have all that against Canetti here. Guido Canetti is a fighter that the UFC's been keeping around to test these up-and-coming guys, and he's well past his prime. He's 42 years old, but he still tends to push most opponents he's in there with. I mean, Canetti was a really big underdog in his last fight. He fought against a 25-year-old guy in Mana Martinez, and he lost, but it was a split decision loss, so obviously he could have won that night. And he did get dusted by Denai Botgarov in 2020, but Botgarov is, I believe, on a 3 or 4 fight KO streak in the UFC. And in 2018, he went in there against Marlon Vera. He was able to win the first round, and then he got tired, got finished in the second. So Canetti, he has lost 3 fights in a row. He hasn't won a fight since May of 2018. In my opinion, though, this is a major step down in competition for Canetti. He definitely is a winnable fight here. Even being 42 years old, the guy's a great athlete. He's very fast. He has great lateral movement, southpaw. Both these guys are actually southpaw, and it opens up, the ability for Canetti to land those leg kicks. He comes in with hard overhands. He throws good straight lefts as well. And he has good leg kicks. He has good front kicks, good round kicks to the body. He'll throw some spin kicks. And he has power. He can hurt guys if he lands clean early in fights. He uses a lot of movement. He's very fast twitch. He's explosive. So being older and already having cardio issues in the past, he slows down even faster now and definitely doesn't have the best gas tank. But he likes to be all the way in or all the way out. And as he gets tired, guys can cut him off, start to get inside, make it ugly. And Canetti isn't the greatest with his defense in the pocket. He tends to just brawl. And he is tough. He has a good chin, but sometimes he can succumb to fatigue, and leg kicks are an issue for Canetti. Canetti did get knocked out by Batgirl, but like I said, Batgirl is a big power hitter. Alejandro Perez was able to knock out Canetti, but Canetti showed good durability, toughness against Mana Martinez, and overall he has shown to be pretty durable. He's a good wrestler. He's strong. He has good scrambling ability. He's been working at Team Alpha Male for a few years. He's hard to take down, and he has a good ability to reverse takedowns, get on top when guys try to shoot on him. He has a decent blast double. And when he gets on top, he will look to posture, get big ground and pound off, but he doesn't really have the best control. He isn't the best off his back either. He'll try to use a triangle or some sort of submission to create a scramble and stand up. And early on, he does have decent ability to get his foot on the hips and push off, and he's pretty strong and explosive. But as the fight goes on, he'll start to accept bottom position. He has a big cardio problem, and when guys start to beat him up, he will kind of start to give in and then maybe give up a submission. He's done it in the past. He's finished 6 of his 8 wins in the first round, and when fights go past the first round, he's only 2-3. He was dominating the third round against Leomano Martinez. He got taken down and beat up towards the end of that third round. He started good in fights with Marlon Vera. He had another good fight where he started pretty hot against Henry Briones, I believe. That was way back in the day. In both those fights, he ended up getting tired, getting finished in the second and third rounds. And with Chris Moutinho's style, I don't really see this fight going to decision. He's going to really push the pace heavy, and either Canetti's going to get him out of there early or he's going to get drowned, in my opinion. Guido can maybe pot shot and move for a round and a half or so, but eventually in that small cage, he's going to start to get tired. He's going to start to get cut off, and Moutinho's going to make it a dogfight. I think Moutinho by submission is live. I think him by knockout in round 2 or 3 is pretty live. And I also think Canetti by first round finish is a possibility. So I'm going to pick Moutinho by second round, maybe late second round TKO. But this isn't a fight that I'm super confident in. Maybe late second round submission too. So I think Moutinho is going to get the job done, but I do think the fight could go either way, to be honest with you. In this next one here, we got a middleweight fight. We got Dalcha champion. He's going to be taking on Cody Brundage. And he had another disappointing setback. His last fight, he dropped a decision on Marc-Andre Barriault. That was his second loss in his last 3 fights. And the first one can be excused. He had to go in there against Magomed Ankalaev, who's a bad dude, who's headlining this card. And he actually fared decently well for himself in that fight. I believe he actually got a knockdown in that one, and that was one of his better performances in the UFC, if you ask me. But now Dalcha, he's obviously down at 185 pounds, and he went to Sanford MMA for this camp, and obviously they have a lot of elite guys at 185, and he's been bouncing around camps a little bit. I know he was at Extreme Couture, and I believe at another camp, so hopefully he finds this as his home and can kind of stay there and start to hone his skills a little bit. I never really like to see a guy like bouncing around gym to gym over and over, because you never really, I don't think you could gel with guys that quickly, if you're just there for a couple weeks or a couple months or something. So hopefully he could, plant his roots down here in Florida and stay with Sanford and has a good setup here. He's 34, so he isn't too old. I mean, he could definitely make a comeback, and he has the potential physically. He's super explosive. He's powerful. He isn't the most technical, but he has good movement, and he likes to move and then explode in with the counters, the overhands, the overhand right, the right uppercut. The one thing I do think is his speed and his movement and just ability to close the distance was much more pronounced and better at 205, and he even had some fights at heavyweight. Down at 185, I don't think he's quite as fast, and I think he was better up at 205 personally, but down at 185 here, maybe he could get the weight cut right, get a little bit more explosive, get his speed right at this division and start to bring that down here. But exchanging in the pocket is not a good game plan against Dalcha regardless of the weight class. He has big power. Fighters can be hesitant to chase him down or close the gap with him too, because he has pretty good counters. He can knock you out with one punch. But he does let fighters back him up way too much. He skirts the cage, and it's a bad look for the judges. I mean, he let Andre Barriault push him back for 15 minutes his last fight, and fighters can pot shot him, kick him from the outside, use their range, and I do believe that's why he went down to 185, so he could maybe have a little bit more of the height and reach advantage, or at least not be at such a disadvantage. I don't think he's going to even have an advantage in terms of the height against most guys at 185. He does have abnormally long arms. I mean, for being 5'8", he has a 76-inch reach. Brundage, he's 6 foot. He only has a 72-inch reach, but obviously 5'8", he is not very tall, and he is susceptible to those shots up the middle, knees, front kicks, straight punches, uppercuts. He's dangerous. I mean, if you don't set your kicks up on him, if you enter a little bit wild, he has big power and he can knock you out. I mean, he has a good chin. He could be in there against big guys, and he's proven it and take their shots. So at 185, I think he definitely, unless the weight cut is a factor, is going to be able to take the shots of the 185-pound fighters. He has 4 knockouts in his career, and he was only knocked out one time, and that was against Magomed Ankalaev. He got front kick to the face, and it's going to be tough to stand up to that for anybody. But Rountree, he's a good wrestler. He is very physically strong, and he can close the distance and kind of muscle guys to the ground. Good judo takedowns in the clinch, decent trips, and when he gets on top, he's very heavy. His ground and pound is good, and he isn't a big finisher, but he can kind of maul guys and beat them up. He doesn't have the best top control, even though I feel like he could learn, because he looks like he can get, like when he first gets on top, he looks like he can be heavy on top and control, but he gives too much space with his ground and pound and just allows guys to stand up, things like that. He'll just be a little bit too wild, too impatient, I believe. I believe if he could just be a little bit smarter with the way that he controls that space, jam the space a little bit, make it a little bit tighter, throw short shots, he could be a lot more effective, control guys, and beat them up for long periods of time. But his takedown defense is good, and he's been able to defend a large majority of takedowns against him. He can slow down, though, when guys force him to wrestle. So I think for Brundage, who should be in good shape coming into this one, he trains at altitude. He's going to have the full camp coming in here. He's a young guy. He has a wrestling background, and I think he should use that and try to make Rountree a little bit tired. Rountree will start to kind of accept his back against the cage, getting clinched up. His volume will go down. And grappling, like I said, isn't the worst game plan for Brundage here. I do think that at 185, Routree's gas tank, we're going to have to see how it is. I mean, he's had, I believe, 2 fights at 185. No, he had the Perez fight and the Barrialt fight. And both fights, I'll say that he did look like he got pretty tired in both fights. So, yeah, I'm not really too sure. He has lost the 3rd round in both those matches, but he's no quit in him, and he will try to win until the end. The guy's, definitely has a ton of heart. But Cody Brundage, he's in desperate need for a win. He lost not only in his UFC debut against Nick Maximoff, but he lost in the Contender Series to William Knight. So it's just kind of his 3rd chance to get the job done here with the UFC. And he came in on short notice against Maximoff, so he's going to have a full camp here. He's 27 years old. He's training at Factory X, so he should, be able to translate that to the cage and hopefully have a better performance here, you would assume. Brundage, he is a good athlete. He has good movement, good footwork, and he'll stay on the outside and work long crosses, pretty good kicks. His jab isn't bad, and his hand speed is good, and he does a good job of going body head. He can pot shot, and he's going to be looking to intercept Rountree, land those crosses, probably back him up with the in and out movement, mix in some takedowns to get Rountree thinking, and then kind of pot shot him and try to be safe, because Rountree, he's very dangerous, and that's something that Brundage doesn't really have, that same danger factor. He's not a big knockout threat. He doesn't have a big submission threat. So ultimately, I think that Brundage is going to try to play it smart, play it safe here, which is the right thing to do. One thing about Brundage, though, is defensively he's not the best. He holds his hands low, and fighters that are explosive and close the distance and tag him. And in this fight, he's going to be facing a really explosive guy. So I think he's either going to be able to have to wrestle effectively or be much better defensively than he's shown in previous fights to not get tagged by Rountree. But Cody Brundage, he did wrestle in college, and he's an effective grappler. He has good timing on his takedowns and pretty good control. He does a good job of using his punches to set up the double, and he has pretty fast level changes. When he gets on top, he does a pretty good job of transitioning, being aggressive. He has quite a few submission wins and good back takes. He was dominating William Knight. I mean, he took his back, fully flattened him out. He had him in really bad, precarious positions, but he ended up losing that position. William Knight got back to his feet, and Brundage went in for another takedown, and this time Knight just killed him with elbows to the side of the head, knocked him out. But Brundage's last fight, he showed some alright defensive wrestling considering his opponent, but couldn't grapple with Nick Maximoff, who was just a better wrestler, who looked bigger in there, and who was just a better grappler as well. So Brundage got out-grappled in that fight. He was controlled for large portions of that fight, and his cardio has still not been proven to be the best. He's not the most experienced fighter. He only has 8 fights in his career. Most of them came against low-level guys. His best win is against a fighter with just 5 fights. And like I said, he did transition to Colorado, so his cardio should be improved. He's been at Factory X for like a couple years now. His last fight was short notice, so that probably played a factor in him slowing down. This fight is difficult to call because I do think Brundage has the tools to win the fight. If he can get the takedowns, I think he'll be able to blanket Dalcha a little bit and do well there. I think he needs to be a little bit smarter in terms of not trying to take the back or trying to do things too hastily or get in a dominant position and ended up getting reversed, because I've seen him do that in previous fights. But if he could stay calm when he gets on top and control Dalcha a little bit, then I think he could end up having success in the striking as well, and it could end up leading to him getting the win. But Dalcha has a lot of power. He has a big experience advantage. He's fast. He's explosive. He can close the gap quickly. And Brundage's defense is not the best. I think he's going to struggle a bit to take down Dalcha. If he can get Dalcha down early and control him, then I think he's going to probably be able to wear him down and get the victory. But Lungiambula is a short guy. He's going to be hard to shoot in on. Very strong. He has good knowledge of takedowns in the clinch, and I think he's going to be a little too crafty here. I think that he's going to end up clipping Cody Brundage, getting the knockout either in the first or the second round. So I'm going to go with Dalcha Lungiambula by first round KO in this one. And in this next one, we got the first women's fight of the card with Sabina Mazo taking on Miranda Maverick. And these are two girls who are pretty similar spots in their career. They're both touted prospects when they entered the UFC, but now they have 2 losses in a row. Both are 24 years old, so something has to break here. The winner of this fight is probably going to continue to be a prospect in the UFC, and the loser, I doubt they'll be cut, but they'll need a few wins to get back in the mix, get kind of back to where they were when they debuted. For Maverick, the 2-fight losing streak I think is not as bad in the people's eyes, because a lot of people felt like she did win against Macy Barber. She did get dominated, though, in her last fight. She went in there with Erin Blanchfield, who's another young girl that is on the rise, and Blanchfield just dominated her in every round. So that was arguably the worst performance of Maverick's career. She's going to have to bounce back from that. Out of the 2 fighters, I would definitely argue that Maverick has the better resume. Maverick has fought better opponents. But when you look at it, this is really a different matchup for Maverick. If you look at Maverick's fights, she has fought Erin Blanchfield, Macy Barber. She fought Jillian Robertson, Liana Jojua, Pearl Gonzalez, Deanna Bennett. She fought her twice. She fought Shayna Young. She fought Victoria Leonardo twice. All these girls are grapplers, so now she's going to be going in there with a long, tall Muay Thai striker. It's a short notice fight for Maverick, so I'm sure she sees the style matchup and she's going to want to go in there and get the takedown and thinks it's probably a advantageous matchup for her. For Mazo, she's coming off 2 losses in a row. Pretty convincing losses. She got beat by Alexis Davis. She got taken down and held down. Then in her last fight, she got beaten up really badly and then dropped it submitted in the 3rd round. Overall, she's 3-3 in the UFC, and she's beaten a couple good fighters. She did beat Jj Aldridge, and she did beat Justine Kish. Those are 2 pretty good wins. But she lost to Marina Moroz, who's top 15. Alexis Davis, she's a longtime veteran. She's always around the top 15. And then she lost to Maria Agapova, who had another bad performance last Saturday, but is dangerous when she shows up on point. So Mazo's losses aren't necessarily bad losses. And she has a much different matchup than what she was anticipating to fight on this card. She was expecting to fight Mandy Bohm, who's a taller, orthodox striker. And now she's fighting Miranda Maverick, who's a short southpaw wrestler, so it's a big shift for her. But if you go on her social media, it does seem like she's been working a lot of wrestling and grappling. Recently, she's had this training camp at Teixeira MMA and Fitness, so she's training with really good grapplers there, and the champ, obviously. And ultimately, though, this is kind of a striker versus grappler matchup. We got Maverick, who I do think is the if you want to say one person is better at the other person's strength, I think that Maverick is the better striker, but I think Mazo does have a significant advantage still there. Mazo has a big, height and reach advantage, a pretty significant margin actually. I mean, she, I believe, has like a 5-inch reach advantage, and she is 4 inches taller. But the thing with Mazo is she doesn't really use her reach the best. I mean, especially early, she tends to be a slow starter, and she's flat-footed. She comes forward. She's very plotty. And I do feel like Maverick, who is shifty, she has pretty good movement, closes the gap, and her boxing is all right. She has okay kicks from the outside. She isn't impactful with anything she throws, but she does a good job of setting up the takedown with her striking. So I think that's what she's going to do in this fight, and I think she's going to be able to hit the takedown. She's a superior wrestler by a large margin, in my opinion, unless Mazo has really improved in that aspect. And she is also the better grappler. I don't necessarily think that Maverick is going to be able to do much to Mazo on the mat. Mazo has proven, I believe she's a purple or brown belt in jiu-jitsu, and she was in there with Miranda Maverick, and she was able to kind of nullify Moros's ability to do much on the top position. I mean, she did get with some good ground and pound, but Moraes wasn't able to just destroy and dominate like she has some other girls on the mat. She was able to survive and not get submitted against Alexis Davis on the ground as well. So I don't think Maverick is necessarily going to be able to find a finish, but she should come in here with good cardio. I mean, it is short notice, but Maverick, she usually comes in good shape. She had some difficulty with cardio earlier in her career, but recently she has been able to really show pretty good cardio, and I think this matchup is just good matchup stylistically for her. I think she's going to have a girl with long legs, that she's going to see those legs, you have to close distance, scoop her up and get the takedown, control from the top position, and kind of win the fight by mixing it up. I think she'll eventually be able to land some okay hands too, but Mazo's live because Mazo's dangerous. She has good weapons. She has a nice high kick. She has nice knees up the middle. And if she can make Maverick work for the takedowns and Maverick starts to get a little bit tired, a little bit sloppy, Mazo could maybe land a big shot and get her out of there. But, women's flyweight knockouts aren't really that likely of a scenario. And Maverick is very tough. She's young. She's, I believe, never been finished by strikes. So I think Maverick will be able to go in there and get the decision win. So I'm going to go with Miranda Maverick in this one. And in this next fight, we got two grapplers with Kamuela Kirk taking on Damon Jackson. And this fight's pretty good because obviously Kirk, he's a lot younger. He's 6 years younger. I believe he's the more athletic, dynamic striker. And he is a guy that likes to pot shot. He likes to move around and hit these guys with these long, straight punches, use some kicks. He is pretty flashy, dynamic. And eventually he frustrates him by pot-shotting him, and then he can level change at the takedown. And he's been doing jiu-jitsu for a long time, so you could tell when he's fresh and he gets these guys to the mat, he can transition really well. He has a really, really good submission game, and he can get a lot of guys out of there quickly. 6 first-round submissions, 8 first-round finishes, and in this fight, though, with Damon Jackson, I don't think it's going to be so easy to get him out of there with the submission. And the thing about Kirk is, in my opinion, he doesn't pack a lot of power in his hands. Maybe he could land like a big kick, big knee, even a big cross if he just walks you into it perfectly and knock you out. But I don't think it's a very high likelihood scenario. And Kirk doesn't have the best cardio, so if guys can be superior grapplers to him, he has really struggled with that throughout his career. He has lost to guys like Billy Q, who could scramble really well and made him work for the takedown, and in my opinion, got tired. His last fight against Makwan Nurmikani, and I thought Makwan won that fight, but they gave the decision to Kirk. And Kirk, though, I mean, in fights that go long that he can win, it's usually just by him controlling with his grappling. And in this fight, I don't think that's going to be a likely scenario for him. I think that Damon Jackson, who is called the Leech for a reason, he is a really long, rangy guy himself. So I think on the feet, he's going to be able to cut that cage off, use his volume, and he likes to be a little bit more sloppy with his striking. He isn't quite as technical or pretty. He just kind of uses some front kicks, some straight punches, tries to maul you, close the distance, dirty box, get attached to you, and then get you to the mat, get you tired, get on top of you, beat you up, and hit that submission. And Jackson, he has pretty good durability. I mean, he has been blasted out of there by a few guys, but I don't think Kirk has that type of power or explosiveness. And he has the ability to grapple really well. He has good takedowns. Even when he gets taken down, he will, work the submission game, work to get back up to his feet. He has pretty good sweeps. He was able to defeat Mirsad Bektic, who's a very strong grappler. He was able to wear him out and then submit him in the third round on short notice. So always is in good shape. He's a veteran, and I think with this fight he has a good matchup because it's two guys that like to grapple. It's a guy that likes to pressure against a guy in Kirk who does bad against pressure fighters on the feet. And I think that Jackson's going to be able to pressure him on the feet. He's going to be able to maybe get taken down early, but not get submitted. And then eventually he's going to start to get his grappling going, get the takedown on Kirk. And I think Kirk is not going to be able to have the same type of resistance to the grappling and the onslaught that Jackson puts on him that Jackson had to Kirk's. I think Kirk's going to go down with the stamina pretty badly, and I think Jackson is either going to dominate him to a decision victory or get the finish. So I think Damon Jackson is going to be able to maybe overcome some early adversity, but come back strong and drown Kirk down the stretch. I'm going to say that he gets a submission win late in the second round. So I'm going to go with the veteran here. I'm going to go with Damon Jackson to pick up the slight upset win. And this is a good fight. We got my guy Trevin Jones. He's coming back. He's going to be taking on Javid Basharat. And bantamweight, man, that's a shark tank of a division. These are two talented fighters, and they're looking to move up the rankings. Right now, they're kind of near the bottom end of the rankings. For Trevin Jones, man, it's a little bit unfortunate, man, because he had his first fight in the UFC against a top 15 guy, Timur Valiev, get taken away from him because he failed the drug test for marijuana metabolites, and I do believe he came in on short notice, so wasn't something that he could control, I don't believe. I mean, obviously, unless he just was smoking weed before, but and then he ended up fighting Mario Batista, got another knockout, so he had some momentum, but then he fought Said Kakramanov in his last fight, and he had a bad performance, so he had a flat performance, but he had fights scheduled for July, for August. He was scheduled to fight Tony Kelly July 24th, and then he was going to fight Ronnie Lawrence, I believe a week later, and he actually made weight to fight Ronnie Lawrence, and Lawrence botched the weight cut, so they didn't end up fighting. And then Jones turned right back around and was going to fight Mana Martinez on August 21st, so he was already forced to cut weight twice in 3 weeks at this point. And then you have to try to, time his peak shape for fight day 3 different times. And then Mana Martinez eventually ended up not even being the fighter that Jones faced on August 21st. He pulled out and then ended up fighting Said. So under better circumstances here, I think he's going to look better. And like I said, he started his UFC career beating Timur Valiev and Mario Batista. Those are two big upset wins. So if he can bounce back and take an undefeated guy in Javid Basharat, I think he'll be kind of right back into the mix, right back into relevancy again. For Javid, he's a Contender Series fighter. He was able to pick up a submission win against Oren Cologne in his fight in the Contender Series, and that matchup ended up being one of the bigger matchups on the entire season because before the fight, Cologne said some racial slurs to Basharat, and it made the fight more personal. And obviously, Basharat was able to get the last laugh, though. He ended up beating him pretty easily, and he's a fighter with a lot of promise. He's dangerous. All of his wins are finishes. He's training at Extreme Couture now, so his coaches and training partners have upped a level from where he was training at previously. And Jones has also spent time at Extreme Couture, so the coaches there may be able to give him a bit of inside information or some tendencies on Trevin Jones. But Basharat, he's a fun fighter to watch. He's flashy. He has really nice kicks. He has good movement. He's a very elusive, fast guy. And he throws kicks to all parts of the body. He could switch stances. He's fluid. He has a Taekwondo stance, Taekwondo background. So he'll throw a lot of front leg side kicks, crescent kicks, spin kicks, and he can be very effective. I mean, when guys give him range and he can get confident, go forward, find his distance, he could really start to beat guys up pretty badly. His leg kicks are nasty. He doesn't have the best hands. He has decent pull counters, and he has good speed. He will try to close distance with some big crosses or big uppercuts and good pacing. So he has good cardio, and when he sees guys start to tire or start to pressure more and look to up the volume, he maybe get in the pocket more and work his hands a little bit, but he isn't the best boxer, and he hasn't fought a ton of great opponents. I did watch a fight of his against Tony Hall, and Hall's a tough guy. He was able to eat his kicks and pressure him. He started to get Basharat a little bit tired. Basharat's chin started to come up, and he was landing some shots on him. He's was also landing some nice leg kicks on Basharat. Basharat wasn't checking leg kicks in that fight. That was, I believe, 2017, so he could potentially be improved from that. But Basharat was eventually able to get the takedown and then catch the guillotine when Hall went to stand up. And he likes to get these foot sweep takedowns, and he hasn't been out of the first round since December of 2020. Or he hadn't been out of the first round since December of 2020, besides that fight with Hall. And his cardio did look better in his last two fights. His fight in Octagon MMA, he was able to pressure, tire out his opponent, and then finish him towards the end of the second round. Then he did earn a third round submission in his last fight. So he's young, and his pacing and his cardio is going to improve, whereas the Hall fight, he did look like he slowed down a little bit. But Basharat has well-rounded skills. He has good level changes, pretty decent wrestling. He isn't the most active with his wrestling, but he does a good job using his striking to get fighters to shoot in on him. And then from there, he has good takedown defense, good scrambling ability, good sweeps, good front chokes. And, so he can kind of lull you into a bad takedown and then submit you. And he's been able to do that to several opponents. He has quite a few front choke submissions. His last fight, he was able to kind of catch the kicks of Cologne, who's also a range striker, and just beat him up from the top position with elbows, and showed good ground control before submitting him in the third round. Trevin Jones, though, he's, in my opinion, a big step up. He's a very experienced veteran. He knows what to do to survive. He stays very calm. He has good counters. He listens to his coach as well. And I expect Jones to come in with a good game plan and look to play it smart. I see him hanging back, letting Basharat come to him and try to close the distance or catch kicks when Basharat throws them. Jam Basharat against the cage, look to slow him down. And Basharat doesn't have a lot of experience in long fights, so if he can grind him down a bit, get him tired, then Basharat could start to make mistakes with the striking, leave those counter-punching opportunities for Jones. Jones is very opportunistic. When he sees an opening, he will take it and put guys' lights out. He could switch stances. He has power in both hands, but he is a southpaw, mostly very sneaky from that stance. And kicks have been a bit of an issue for Jones. He can get pot-shotted, and obviously Timur Valiev, who's a very good kicker, very fast, was able to give him some issues, which maybe could be seen as a similar style matchup on the striking to Javid. But obviously, if Trevin is struggling with the speed or the kicks or the movement and setups of Basharat, he has to take, more of a kind of go forward approach and try to walk Basharat down, jam the kicks, and get him tired. His last fight, he really struggled with the speed of Said Kakramanov, which is something that Basharat has also. So I think that Basharat's going to be confident because of that, and he's going to be confident because Jones was caught in a guillotine in his last fight, and guillotines and front chokes are Basharat's shit, so that's something I believe he's going to be confident about as well. But Jones, he's a black belt. He's pretty good, though, when he can get the takedowns against the cage and get on top. He has decent body locks, doubles. He's very effective. He throws good ground and pounds, very methodical. He just needs to be careful of the guillotines in this fight, obviously, but if he can get on top, he controls position well and does a good job getting into his dominant positions like the mount, using his ground and pound to make fighters give the back hit and the rear naked choke. And he fights at a deliberate pace. I don't believe has the greatest cardio, but I think he does a good job controlling how fast his fighter fights and kind of controlling the pace of the fight. Even in his last fight with Kakramanov, where he had to cut weight twice, he didn't really have the best circumstances. He was winning the whole third round pretty much before he went for a single leg and got caught with the guillotine. And one thing you could definitely say about Jones, he's a tough-ass dude. I mean, he's only been finished twice in his career. Both have been submissions. He's been able to battle through extreme adversity. And in that last fight, he didn't tap. He ended up electing to get put to sleep. And he's going to be extremely motivated to come back and get another UFC win here. He knows this is a massive fight for him. And he had a lot of momentum when he had the 2 knockouts in a row. And I believe that, his last fight where he took a misstep really dropped him down the rankings. But he's an underrated fighter, in my opinion. He's not flashy. He doesn't really throw any crazy techniques on the feet. He uses low kicks, the counter check hook, the left cross, good hand speed. He switches stances. He strong. He has a black belt, and he has good wrestling. Against most opponents in the division, Jones is going to be able to control him and take him down if he gets a takedown, in my opinion. He has a good fight IQ, and he fights within himself. He's going to be hard to get out of there. For Basharat, I think it's going to be a lot to overcome. Basharat's a guy that hasn't really seen someone that can adjust. He hasn't seen a fighter that could take him down and control him. I don't think he's seen someone that can stay calm and counterpunch as well as Trevin Jones does. And I think Trevin Jones may struggle a little early, but I think he's going to keep that pressure, keep that same pace. He's going to work the leg kicks, and eventually Basharat's going to slow down a little bit. Jones is going to get some control time against the cage, maybe get a takedown or two. And I think he's going to eventually be able to line up one of those counter shots, whether it be a right hook, whether it be a left uppercut, left straight. I think he's going to knock out Basharat second, third round. When Basharat gets tired, starts maybe throwing some naked kicks or closing the distance with his chin high. And I think Jones is going to be able to get him out of there. He's more experienced, and I think he's going to get the job done here. So give me Trevin Jones. And moving along here, the next fight, we got Jillian Robertson versus Jj Aldridge. Jillian Robertson, she was able to get back on the right track. She snapped a 2-fight losing streak last December. She was able to get a submission win with just 1 second left on the clock in the first round against Priscilla Cachoeira. And obviously, we all know about the controversy a little bit with Cachoeira in that fight, but Robertson was still able to get the job done. And she's been around at this point. I mean, everyone knows what she wants to do, but this is her 12th UFC flyweight fight, which is the most all-time for that division. A win here will tie Robertson for the most wins all-time. She also holds the record for the most finishes. So, she started her career 4-1, and she has 6 finishes, 4 finishes in her first 4 fights. But since she took that step up in competition, she's only been 3-3 in her last 6. So she has a lot of accolades, and she definitely has proven herself in the octagon, but she's been inconsistent against kind of top 30 level competition. She hasn't won 2 fights in a row since 2019. So this is a big fight for her to try to get back into contention. And Jj Aldridge, she's quietly been collecting wins and paychecks in the octagon for a long time. She was part of that Ultimate Fighter season 23. She went 1-1 in that season. She lost to Tatiana Suarez, so no shame there. And then she wasn't picked up by the UFC at that time, but she earned 2 more quick wins after the show. She lost to Suarez in February of 16, and then she won a fight in September, November of 2016. She got the call to fight in the UFC, and I believe it was on December 9th, 2016. So she had 3 fight weeks really fast. Short notice camp, she took on Juliana Lima, and she lost that fight. So can't really blame her for the loss, but that got her in the UFC. So she's been in the UFC for 6-7 years at this point. And after that, Aldridge took a little time off. She came back, I believe, 6 months later, won 3 fights in a row, and she got to step up. She fought Macy Barber, and she actually dominated the first round. She dropped Barber, but Barber was able to adjust, got Aldridge out of there in the second. And since then, she's kind of gone back to fighting low-level fighters. Aldridge, she has won 3 of her last 4 again. Her one loss in that run to Sabina Mazo was a questionable loss, but she also has a questionable win in there to Courtney Casey, so things kind of ended up evening out for her there. Her last fight, she looked really good. She dominated a kind of overmatched Vanessa Demopoulos for 15 minutes, and this is a similar matchup here in Robertson in terms of she has to avoid being put on her back, but a tougher one because Jillian Robertson has better wrestling than Vanessa Demopoulos does. She's also much more experienced, and Aldridge was expecting to fight Ariane Lipsky here, so this is a totally different matchup here. She has only had about 1 week to adjust to this new opponent. Robertson, she's jumping in on pretty short notice, so she has had cardio issues in the past, especially her fight with Miranda Maverick, for instance, so
She looks in good shape for this training camp, though, or she didn't even have a training camp for this fight. She looks like she has been working and she's in good shape, but this is a classic striker versus grappler matchup. JJ, she's slick southpaw. She has good boxing cardio and good pressure. And then Robertson, she's a mean black belt. She takes risks to finish fights on the ground. And I do think Aldridge is more well-rounded. She has pretty good wrestling. You could tell that she has pretty good knowledge with her submission defense. She's good in the clinch. She has good top control. She's shown the ability to nullify the guards of good jiu-jitsu fighters like Poliana Viana and Vanessa Demopoulos. And she does a really good job with her head positioning, staying really tight, throwing short shots, just not giving a lot of space for submissions, for sweeps. And Robertson on the feet has improved quite a bit. She's gotten a little bit more confident with her hands, and she at least puts more into her punches. She sits down on them a little bit more. Her kicks are okay, but striking is still very rudimentary, and she can't hang for too long against many opponents on the feet. But luckily for Robertson, she has pretty good movement. She's patient, and she does a good job of kind of making her opponents come to her, and then when they overextend, hitting that single. And with Robertson having a southpaw opponent here, that will probably help her with the single leg a little bit. JJ, as I said before, I mean, she's going to be trying to keep it at a distance, limit her kicks and box. She has good distance control, feints, fakes, fast, sharp boxing combo. She throws good 1-2s. She has a good pull too. She does a good job of, even when she lands big, she always stays composed. She stays kind of in the right place. Good balance. One thing, she will kind of sometimes overextend with the left overhand, and she needs to kind of stop doing that for this fight. But I do believe that, she's a good grappler. I think that Aldridge is underrated as a grappler. She has good takedown defense. Her takedown offensive clinch control is pretty good. She's not a submission threat, but she can control on top, win minutes. She was submitted a couple times with the rear naked choke early in her career. She got submitted by Jamie Moyle in her second pro fight, then caught by Tatiana Suarez in 2016. But since then, Aldridge has not been finished. And she's a girl that has been doing this since she was really young. So she was, I believe, 22 when she fought Moyle, 23 when she fought Suarez. Now she's 29. She has 9 UFC fights. I don't think she's going to be quite as easy to submit. Robertson's best submission, though, is that rear naked choke. So it is something to be a little bit weary of. But hopefully with the experience that JJ has gotten over the years, she can avoid getting submitted by a rear naked choke again. And another thing is Robertson has good arm bars from the full guard. So JJ has dealt with that in the past several times, but definitely has to be aware of that against Jillian as well. But Aldridge, she's shown a decent guard game off her back. I mean, she was able to stand up against Tatiana Suarez multiple times. She was able to do the same against Juliana Lima. She does a good job of using the butterfly guard to get back up, and she does a good job of kind of skirting herself to the cage and then trying to climb up with the cage. So her get-up game isn't bad. And against Poliana Viana, she was able to stay relatively safe, and Poliana took her back. Eventually, she was able to reverse, get on top, and control on top until the end of the round. And she showed no regard for the grappling of Vanessa Demopoulos. She took her down, controlled her from the top position. So I definitely think that Aldridge can take down Robertson and control her at some point in this fight potentially. And I think it could be a smart game plan as well, because if she could get a takedown with like 1 minute left in the round, not give Robertson a lot of time to set anything up, and then just kind of control her, she could get her a little tired, and she could maybe demoralize her a little bit. And I would say that Robertson, though, is the best wrestler-grappler combination that Aldridge has fought since she fought Tatiana Suarez. Obviously, Robertson isn't on that level, but Aldridge hasn't really fought any wrestlers since then. And Aldridge, though, if she stays sharp and she doesn't overextend on her punches, she keeps the distance, she boxes, she'll get the job done, in my opinion. She has a nice jab, her pull too. Her ability to fight in the pocket is really good. She has a good sprawl. She should maybe try to even mix in the left kicks to the body. I do think Robertson's a little weak to the body. Obviously, she needs to make sure she sets the body kicks up so they don't get caught and get her taken down. But I think Aldridge gets the job done here. I see him being able to use her striking, her distance control, her experience, and her defensive grappling to beat up Robertson. I wouldn't be surprised to see Aldridge get the TKO finish here either in this fight. I think JJ is going to get this one done here.
And up next here, man, this fight should be pretty awesome. We got Matthew Semelsberger versus AJ Fletcher. And Matt Semelsberger, he's proved how dangerous he is in the UFC. The last fight, I believe, he got a 16-second knockout. He also has a 15-second knockout against Jason Witt. So 2 knockouts in under 20 seconds. The guy is super athletic. You could tell that very fast, really good counter puncher, really good pull counters, good movement. He could switch stances. Explosive guy. He is pretty smart on the way that he fights. You know, he's always trying to pull guys into his weapons. He doesn't overextend too much and fights pretty smart. One thing that you could argue that Semelsberger has struggled with a little bit throughout his career is his takedown defense, his grappling. But I do think that, you know, he's shown ability to improve that. He has a very fast sprawl, and he's very explosive, hard to hold down. I've seen him, you know, hit some good kind of scrambles to get back up to his feet as well. So I think he's improving in that aspect quite a bit. And his cardio is good, and he does a good job of, if he does get taken down or he does start to see how you're entering the takedowns, even if he defends them, he can start to find what he wants to do to counter that takedown and knock you out. And with AJ Fletcher, he's a very powerful, durable kid. He's young, he's aggressive, and as a pro, he's undefeated. He does have a couple losses as an amateur, but he's been on a roll. And his last fight, he got a nasty flying knee knockout, so he just showed his explosiveness and knockout power. That's one thing that Semelsberger does have, is a great chin as well. But both these guys are very durable. I've seen Fletcher get hit with some big shots, and you know, he gets rocked, but he's able to recover quickly, and he just comes right back on the offensive. Very tough kid. And you know, Fletcher, I don't think he's as good of a striker, even though he maybe has a little bit more weapons. He throws a lot of wide hooks. He has his hands a little bit too low for my liking, and he doesn't have the reach or the height advantage in here. He actually has a fairly big disadvantage where he has an 8-inch reach disadvantage, and I think that Semelsberger is going to take full advantage of that. He's a guy that already has good distance control, speed, and pull counters. Fletcher's going to be very aggressive closing that gap, and I think Semelsberger is going to be right there waiting to tag him. And I just think Semelsberger's takedown defense is going to show improvement. Fletcher, his path to victory is to get the takedown. He has good level changes, very fast, and when he gets on top, he can maul you. He does a good job getting in that crucifix position, good ground and pound, decent submission game. So he's dangerous when he can get it to the mat, and he is live here at his number, especially, you know, like you said, if he can get it to the ground, I think he could even find a finish potentially. But I'm going to go with Semelsberger. I think that with his height and reach advantage, I think he has the speed advantage, the striking advantage. I think he's going to be able to control the distance and either knock out Fletcher early or defend the takedowns, move pot shot, and win a decision. So going to go with Matt Semi the Jedi Semelsberger. Man, this fight should be pretty sick. I honestly don't have like a big breakdown for this fight. I mean, we got Alex Pereira taking on Bruno Silva. Both these guys are 2 Brazilian hitters, man. I mean, Bruno Silva, he doesn't obviously have that resume of being one of the best strikers in the world like Alex Pereira, but he has 19 knockouts in his 22 wins, and he goes in there and he likes to go to war and get the KO. But man, with this fight with Alex Pereira, I mean, we got one of the guys, like you said, one of the best kickboxers in the world. And the guy's known for just being unorthodox and having killer brutal power, man. I mean, it's not like he necessarily is the most technical kickboxer. So it does make the fight fun, because if you watch some of Alex's fights, you do see he's a hittable guy. I mean, he has been hit in certain fights. He has been rocked in fights, and he's really durable. But Bruno has a chance to knock him out potentially. I mean, it would be a huge upset. But the thing with Pereira, man, is the guy just has an abnormally long frame, 6'4", 80-inch reach, very fast twitch, superb speed, and unbelievable left hook, man. I mean, his left hook is just absolutely nasty. He has really nice low kicks. He'll use the low kicks a lot and then go high. He has no tell on his knees, on his high kicks, really good flying knees. I mean, the guy's just a brutal striker. There's no doubt about it, but he's facing another guy that's a hitter in Bruno Silva. Silva, he's more of a brawler. He has really nice low kicks, and he wants to close the distance, get in your face, and look for the straight rights and the left hooks.
He has big power in his straight right hand, and he'll close the distance and get in big hooks, brawling exchanges. He also has a black belt in jiu-jitsu, but he doesn't go for takedowns. So in this fight, I mean, that would obviously be very smart, and he might go in there and do it. But I just don't see that happening. I mean, I've seen him get taken down in fights to control. It doesn't seem like he really likes to wrestle, and I feel like he's going to keep it on the feet, and I just think Pereira's going to knock him out. So going to go with Alex Pereira in this one, but Bruno Silva, he could surprise, get the takedowns and win, or he could even get the knockout. So he has a lot more experience in MMA, and fighting with those little gloves, it does make a big difference. But I think that Pereira, he's determined here. He's beaten the champ already. He sees a pass. If he can get a brutal knockout here, he could only be like 1-2 fights away from a title shot. So Pereira has a lot to gain here with the win. Bruno Silva, we saw him get rocked really badly against Jordan Wright. So I think if Wright could catch him clean and hurt him, I think Pereira could put him out. So going to go with Pereira by first round knockout. And in this next fight, we got Drew Dober taking on Terrance McKinney. This is a short notice fight for Terrance McKinney here. Terrance McKinney just fought a couple weeks ago. He got another patented really quick finish against Farziam where he didn't take much damage at all. I don't even know if he got hit with one punch. Dober, he should be ready for this matchup in a way, because I do think McKinney, even though he's a dynamic striker and early on he might try to close the distance and be real wild with the high kicks or the straight punches and try to catch lightning in a bottle and knock out Dober like he has some other opponents. He's more of a grappler, and he will try to make it more wrestling grappling. And Dober was getting ready to fight Rick Glenn, who's a really good grinder in the division, long striker. So kind of a similar matchup here with Terrance McKinney, who's going to have the height, reach advantage, probably have a little bit of a speed advantage early when he's fresh. And the thing that makes McKinney dangerous, especially just with his stand-up, is, he just goes for it. He closes distance. He'll throw these really nice 1-2s. He'll get in the pocket, throw kind of wild hooks. I feel like when he brawls, he is very vulnerable against a guy like Drew Dober, but he has a nice high kick, and he either knocks you out early or he uses all that kind of chaos to get his single leg, and when he gets on top, he is a really good job of transitioning to the back. He has good rear naked chokes, and he has a lot of early first round submissions or knockout wins. We all kind of know the story with McKinney now with the early victories, but with Drew Dober, man, this is a big step up with Dober. And we've seen McKinney, for instance, like with Sean Woodson, where he gets the takedowns, he takes the back, he controls for the whole first round, he gets the takedown again early in the second round. Woodson, you could tell that his control isn't as good. Woodson gets back up to his feet. McKinney's tired. Really obvious level change, knocked out. You see other fights where McKinney is brawling with his opponent and looks very vulnerable against guys with great striking like Dober. And Drew Dober's a vet, man. Drew Dober's a really excellent striker. Vicious knockout power. He is really good in a brawl. Super durable. Nasty leg kicks, nasty body kicks. He has a really good check right hook, good straight left hand, southpaw guy. He does a good job staying calm. I think that's going to be a big factor in this fight. I think he's going to stay calm when McKinney's being real wild early. He's going to be able to kind of get past that. McKinney may get a single or two, but Dober has proven to be, a lot better scrambler, grappler, and guy with get-ups and just ability to not get submitted like Farziam or these other guys that Terrance has been fighting. He's been in there with guys like Beneil Dariush, been able to get back up to his feet after getting his back taken. He lasted 3.5 rounds with Islam Makhachev. He was able to, do well against other grapplers like Alex Hernandez and beat them. So I feel like Drew Dober is going to get the knockout in this fight. I think McKinney's going to maybe get a takedown or two early. He might land a big shot and get Dober like a little bit rocked, but Dober is always known to be notoriously durable, and the guy, hard to submit, hard to hold down. I think Terrance might take him down and control him a little bit. Dober will get back up to his feet. McKinney will be a little bit slowed down a little bit, and I think Dober will end up catching him when he gets wild, knocking him out. And I like McKinney. I think he could be back, but I think he's a little bit overhyped at this point. I think Dober gets the job done by knockout. And in this next fight, we got two pretty untrustworthy guys with Khalil Rountree taking on Karl Roberson. Kind of like a bad news Bears fight, but man, Karl Roberson, he's coming off 2 losses in a row. He had a lot of weight cutting issues. If you remember the whole saga with Marvin Vettori and all that, and I believe he missed weight again for his fight with Brendan Allen. So he's moving up to 205 pounds here and going to be taking on one of the more dangerous strikers at 205 pounds when he comes in with his mindset right, in Khalil Rountree Jr. And, you know, I feel like this fight is fairly close because both guys are guys that just drop the ball. I mean, Khalil Rountree, he looked excellent in his last fight against Modestas Bukauskas. He finished him with that really nasty side kick to the knee. And when Rountree goes in there and he looks good, he could really look good. I mean, we've seen him just devastate guys like Paul Craig. We've seen him go in there and get knockouts over Gokhan Saki. But then you see him go in there as a minus 400 favorite against Marcin Prachnio, and he loses a decision. So he can be up and down. His cardio is questionable. Can't grapple well. So Rountree has some things that he struggles with. But in this fight with Karl Roberson, man, if this stays on the feed, I think that it's Rountree all day, in my opinion. I mean, Karl Roberson, with his stand-up, he has decent hand speed, and he has pretty good boxing. You throw the 3-2s and the 1-2s, but his footwork isn't the best. I think he struggles to close the distance. He's not really the most explosive, fastest guy with his feet. And I think Khalil Rountree Jr., he's very light on his feet. He's very good with his movement. He bounces in and out. He does a good job of, exploding and countering when guys are a little bit hesitant to close the gap. And I think with Roberson, he's going to be beating up his legs. It's southpaw versus southpaw. Both these guys like to throw leg kicks, so that's going to be interesting. But I've just seen a few of Roberson's fights. Like, I even went back and watched his fights with Dustin Jacoby, for instance, guys like that. And when guys can keep that distance on him, use their footwork, feints, throw kicks well, stay on the outside, land big counter punches when Roberson tries to close the distance, they're really effective against him. And I do think some people are coming in here believing that Roberson could maybe mix it up and get the takedowns or threaten the takedowns, get Khalil tired and win that way. But I don't really think that's a likely thing for Karl Roberson to do. I mean, he did take down Jack Marshman a couple times, but Marshman is a small 185er. He's not fast. He's not explosive. He stands right in front of you. And then, I mean, his fights with Wellington Turman and Darren Stewart, he showed some decent grappling skills, but he wasn't the one that was initiating the takedowns in those fights. It was his opponent, and Rountree Jr. is obviously not going to do that, in my opinion. So I just think Rountree Jr. is going to be a little bit too big as well. He's going to be faster, more explosive, more powerful striker, better kicker, better movement, a little bit, in my opinion, faster hands, and I think he throws a little bit better maybe not hand combos, but I think he picks his shots a little bit better with his hands too. So I think Rountree is going to get the job done in this one. But man, I mean, it is tough to trust either of these guys. I do agree. So Rountree Jr. is the pick for me, but not really a fight I'm too interested in terms of betting it. This next fight, this is a good one. Anytime you have Alex Bruce Leroy Caceres in the cage, it's usually a fireworks fight, whether he wins or loses, and he brings that Bushido energy, with him at all times, and he's a fun guy to listen to during fight week and then watch perform in the cage. And quietly, Caceres is one of the most tenured fighters on the roster. He was on the Ultimate Fighter Season 12 in 2010. He made his UFC debut in 2011, and he hasn't left the company since. He was in the UFC 5 years before Yusuff even had his pro debut. He has 25 UFC fights, 28 if you count the Ultimate Fighter, and Yusuff only has 13 total fights in his entire career. So Caceres has some other advantages entering this fight as well. He's on the best run of his career right now. He's been active. Even though he's been in the UFC for 12 years, he's still relatively young at 33 years old, and he's won 5 fights in a row, 6 of his last 7. You can argue the level of competition was not good for Caceres, and that is valid, but his performances have been pretty consistent, and that's something that Caceres could not have said about himself a few years ago. His last win was his best win. He was able to take out a polished power striker in Sungwoo Choi, and he had to come through some adversity. But he's definitely getting a step up here, even from Choi, with Super Sodiq Yusuff. Yusuff is a fighter who started his UFC career 5-0, but his last fight he lost to Arnold Allen. But even before he went to the UFC, he's a guy that a lot of people saw a lot of promise in. He had a big-time fight on the Contender Series against another super prospect at the time in Mike Davis, and he dominated Davis, earned the contract, and then he was able to beat some established UFC guys in his early run like Andre Fili and Gabriel Benitez. He wasn't able to get it done against Arnold Allen, and after that, I think he had some visa issues or something, and he hasn't fought in almost a year, so he is going to be having to get some ring rust off probably, but this is a good match for him to come in here. He's facing an OG guy, an established name, and both guys have rankings behind their names, so it's something that the winner is probably going to get a top 10 opponent next. With Caceres, he is going to have a few things that he has an advantage in over Sodiq in terms of his fighting style as well. He is southpaw, and Yusuff, he was able to beat Gabriel Benitez, who's southpaw, but he got dropped. And then he struggled a lot with the southpaw style of Arnold Allen. He got dropped in that fight as well. So both of the southpaws that Yusuff has fought in the UFC has got knocked down against. But I do think that both those guys are a level above Caceres, most likely. Maybe not a level above in terms of Gabriel Benitez, but I think that Mowgli has more power. But Alex Caceres, he has a good reach advantage in this fight. Obviously, he has that southpaw stance, and he has good footwork, good movement, and throws some really nice kicks. He has some pretty good different weapons, but really what he's dangerous with are either if he lands a big head kick or he lands the nice 1-2s, and he's gotten better with his boxing. It seems like he's gotten better with his composure as well, but he still can be pressured and backed up, and I don't necessarily feel like Caceres has the most big-time knockout power. In his recent fights, he's been able to show off his improved grappling, both offensively and defensively. He did get taken down a couple of times by Kevin Kroom, but stayed safe, showed a good guard game, and he's shown a good ability to, when guys are chasing him down, he will kind of start to get hit a little bit, but he plays a little bit coy, and then eventually he'll let someone come in, and then he ducks under, takes the back, and he has nice slick back takes that way. He has gotten a submission in his last fight with that. He was able to submit Austin Springer. So when he gets the back, he has, I believe, probably worked a lot on his back defense and back offense, back mount, because he has been submitted by Runic and choked so many times throughout his career. So Caceres is very well versed in that position at this stage of his career. But with Sodiq Yusuff, I think he's fighting a guy that is much more powerful and much more explosive than the recent fighters that Caceres has fought. Sungwoo Choi was able to drop Caceres, and with Sodiq Yusuff, we have someone that likes to pressure forward, throws really good hand combinations, has good hand speed, big power, very explosive guy, and I think in the small cage, he has shown really good durability as well. I think he's going to be able to eat the shots that Caceres throws, start to get inside on him, and I do think he's going to be the stronger guy physically, so one thing that I think would be smart, and he showed it in the past that he's a decent grappler. He trains at Team Lloyd Irving. He should maybe try to get in the clinch, wear on Alex a little bit, control him, maybe try to take him down, lay on him a little bit, get him tired. But mainly I think he's going to pressure, work his boxing, try to jam the kicks and the long strikes Caceres, and I think he's going to be effective with it. I think his power and his speed is going to be a little bit overwhelming for Caceres. His explosiveness, his ability to close the distance. I think Caceres has pretty good range, pretty good distance control, but I don't think he necessarily has the power. And once Yusuff starts to get Caceres a little bit tired from backing up and landing some counters, I think he's going to start to be able to get into his range, land the big shots. I think Caceres is going to take those shots as well, and I think Sodiq could mix in some grappling potentially, but I think he may get the knockout in this one or just be able to beat up Alex into getting a decision victory. So I'm going to go with the younger guy. Going to go with the up-and-comer with Sodiq Yusuff. And then with the co-main event, I mean, what can you really say about this fight? We got the UFC trying to bring up their star, Song Yudong, the Chinese market, everything like that, and they're giving him a former title challenger, a guy that's been ranked number 1 in the world, a guy that, should be very proud of his career, an animal in Marlon Moraes, but someone that's got knocked out 3 times in a row, someone that has shown big durability and cardio issues in his recent fights, someone that's getting up there in age at 33 years old now. And, I mean, does Marlon Moraes have a chance to win in his fights? I mean, of course. I mean, even though I said all those things about him just now, just look at his last fight with Merab Dvalishvili, one of the best guys in the world. He almost had him out of there. I mean, some other refs might have stopped the fight. He was brutalizing Merab in the first round, but Merab was able to survive that barrage, and then Marlon, he couldn't keep the pace, and he got finished, and unfortunately for him, that's been the case in several of his fights. He started really hot against Henry Cejudo and couldn't keep that pace and got finished for the UFC title. But I mean, Marlon is just a really good kickboxer, really nasty kicks, leg kicks, high kicks. He has good counter punching, good straight punches. He has big power in his hands and his feet. He knocked out some of the best guys in the world in the first round. And, if he can't get you out of there early, like I said, he slows down. His durability is not as good anymore. His grappling seems like it's diminished quite a bit. And Song Yadong is one of these guys that he's young, he's up and coming, he's a knockout artist, he has big power in his hands, big right cross, super fast in his own right, and very durable. He is hittable, so that does give Marlon a chance to win the fight. I mean, Marlon being a big underdog, facing a young guy that probably has never seen someone with the striking acumen that Marlon Moraes has, maybe he could land a big shot and knock Song Yadong out, but I think more likely is Song Yadong is going to be able to use his youthfulness, his speed, be able to take the shots that Marlon throws at him, maybe get hurt early but survive, and then I think he's going to be able to give it back to Marlon. And I don't think Marlon has the ability to take it as good as he used to anymore, and I think Song is going to get him out of there by knockout. So I don't see many people probably going with Marlon Moraes at this point, and I think Song Yadong is going to get the job done here. I think he's going to knock out Marlon Moraes, and I don't know if Marlon Moraes will retire after that or what, but I think that Song Yadong is going to be able to get the job done in this one. And then finally here we got the main event. We got Thiago Santos taking on Magomed Ankalaev. And man, I mean, Magomed Ankalaev is a huge favorite. I was kind of surprised by that, like minus 500. I do agree that Ankalaev should win the fight, but Santos, man, I mean, I do think a lot of people are way down on him. Obviously, he did win his last fight against Johnny Walker, but went to decision and really, really boring fight, kind of a sparring match. The fight before that with Glover Teixeira, it was his big comeback fight. He was a big favorite in that one, and I feel like he probably let a lot of people down there too, where he couldn't get the job done, ended up getting finished in the third round. But man, I mean, if you look at the level of competition that Thiago's been in there with outside of Johnny Walker, I mean, he fought Jan Blachowicz, John Jones, and Glover Teixeira. I mean, if I remember correctly, those are the last three champions in the division, right? And he was able to, I believe, go to a really close, I don't remember if it was a split or not, but a really close decision with John Jones. He knocked out Jan Blachowicz, and then he was able to knock down Glover Teixeira multiple times in their fight, almost knocked him out before getting finished on the ground himself. So Maheta, I mean, the guy has the most knockouts in UFC history. He might have had a bad, or I believe Derek Lewis passed him, but he is second. And, he may have had a bad last fight where it was a little bit lackluster, but the guy could knock out anyone in the world. So, I mean, he's definitely live here against Magomed Ankalaev. He, we kind of know what he has. He's a very explosive guy. He has power in both hands. He has really heavy kicks. He'll explode in on you, blitz forward, and he's really dangerous with his blitz attacks. That's something that Magomed Ankalaev has to be a little bit careful of, because Ankalaev does kind of like to be pretty. Sometimes I feel like he can stay like a little bit, like he's out of range, but he's a little bit too close for guys that are explosive that could blitz in and touch him. And I don't think he's necessarily fought that many explosive guys. He did fight like Iwan Kutelaba, and he was able to line him up and counter him really well. But Kutelaba, I don't think has a great chin at all. Maheta also, you can kind of maybe give that same argument to, that his chin is not the best. So that's something that Ankalaev could potentially pinpoint. I do think Ankalaev is the more technical striker. He has great kicks as well. His footwork, his movement, his feints. He, I believe, sets up his combinations a little bit better. Maheta is a little bit more wild, uses explosiveness, power, and then very, very athletic, nasty kicks. I think he definitely is the more powerful guy, the better kicker. But then with the grappling as well, I think Ankalaev has the wrestling and grappling advantage. I think he will try to hit takedowns in this fight. But I think this is going to be a wild fight. I think Maheta Santos, he had a couple bad fights. He fought Alexander Rakic. I don't really feel like that one was his fault ultimately. I mean, Rakic didn't want to strike with Maheta, and he couldn't take him down, so he just held him against the cage, and Maheta couldn't get his back off the fence, so kind of a lackluster fight. But the Walker fight was bad. So, I mean, he's had back-to-back pretty boring performances. I think he's going to be motivated to come in here and try to get the finish. He's the big underdog. He doesn't have as much to lose. Those other two fights, he was, I believe, the favorite, or I don't know about against Rakic, but he definitely was a big favorite against Walker. And I think he's going to be more willing to go for it here against Ankalaev, but I think it's going to be Ankalaev that ends up clipping him and knocking him out early. I think it's going to be a first-round knockout actually for Ankalaev, or I think maybe he gets him down and finishes him with ground and pound or something. But I just feel like, it's Ankalaev's time at this point. But I do think Santos is live. I do respect his, danger factor. And I do think he's kind of being a little bit disrespected here at this point with the line. With, how people kind of talk about him. I don't think he's totally washed. He's fought higher level competition of fighters in comparison to Ankalaev. And he's fared okay. I mean, even though he's had mixed results, he's arguably could have won the Rakic fight. He's got knockdowns against some of the best fighters in the world. He's beaten former champs. So Thiago's a guy that you don't want to fuck with on the wrong day. But I think that Ankalaev is a bad motherfucker in his own right. I mean, his only loss is to Paul Craig, where he kind of got fluke submitted. And I think that he's going to know. I mean, he's one fight away from the title here. And I think he's going to be able to go in there and get the emphatic win on Maheta. So I'm going to go with Magomed Ankalaev first round knockout in this one. And that's going to be my pick, and that's going to be my full card predictions for UFC Vegas 50, Thiago Santos versus Ankalaev. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hit the like button, put a comment down below. Let's try to get 200 likes again. If you want to have access to other bets for this card and for Bellator, for LFA, for PFL, for this week, check out the Patreon. Highly recommended. For my most confident pick of the week, it's going to be Sodiq Yusuff. And for my parlay of the week, it's going to be Sodiq Yusuff and Miranda Maverick. So thanks for watching, guys. Tell me if you agree or disagree with my parlay, my most confident pick. And I'll be back later in the week for the Patreon, guys, for some more content. And I'll be back next week for everyone on YouTube. So thanks for watching, guys. I really appreciate it. And I'll talk to you guys later.